through the season.
Okay.
Whew. Anyways.
But to go back on that, I understand releasing all 3 episodes because all of them are set up for the main hook of the show. But 3 episodes, that was a long time for your story hook.
I disagree for one reason, which is the flashback that we got shown.
Oh no, the flashback is really good.
No, but I'm saying, I think it was important to stretch it out because this is to show something that Star Wars has been hinting at for a while in both the expanded universe and in the main canon, but this is the first time we will actually see it in live action, which is that the liberalism of the Republic was tyrannical, just not as bad as the Empire.
Well, I'm not speaking as like, oh, the greater message and the
No, but I'm saying the episodes needed to be structured the way they are to get that point across. We needed to space it out a bit to show that Cassian's rebellious streak is not something born of the current day. It is something born from childhood. And I feel that we needed the breaks to see the flashbacks, which, while slowing down the main plot, I think do more to really develop Cassian's character. Because we also get the information that the black guy that was with his surrogate mother is the same one that will end up getting hung by the at the beginning of the show.
I'm just saying, my only issue is that say a casual Star Wars fan sees the show and like, oh, a new show comes out. I got nothing to do. I want to watch the show. My main issue is that getting the plot hook an hour and a half in, it's a little clumsy.
It is a little, but I understand what they're trying to go for.
Like I see what you're saying. Like the greater message that the show is trying to convey. Yeah. It does necessitate a longer setup, but an hour and a half.
What? I will say this actually.
Well, we say that you say that for like the reason I stuck with the show is because I'm more of a Star Wars fan than your casual fan.
Not even saying that. I just think that's not a detriment to the show. That's a detriment to the attention span of average viewers nowadays.
Fair.
I can't say that's a detriment to the show because the show is taking every second they are given to try and develop the world, the story, and the message. And if the average viewer doesn't have the proper attention span to appreciate it, is that the fault of the show?
See, for me, all the episodes really, like... Episodes 1 and 3 really blend together for me, and... just because of how it's structured, because, like, we get the whole setup for what we're expecting for the show from episode 1 to the end of episode 3. Like, it's told really well, but... I don't know. I feel like the most interesting bits of that 3-episode act are episode 2, and the second half of episode 3.
Yeah.
I feel like that's where like the show gets the most interesting, when we learn more about his backstory in Kenari in episode 2.
Yeah.
Like those are the most interesting episodes for me, and I don't know. I'm very persistent on the fact that I don't think episode 1 is a good hook, but the whole 3-episode structure as a whole is a very good hook in its entirety.
But I think that's the point. From what I've heard, Andor is supposed to be broken up into 4 3-episode arcs. And so, I mean, I feel they intentionally...
I feel like this is going to have a very difficult time reaching general audiences, and, like, while this show is definitely not that, I feel like that is a little bit of a impediment to people jumping onto this show, say, rather than, like, The Mandalorian, which has an amazing first episode hook.
I think the real thing that's going to make this hard to get audience into is the fact grounded. I think that's the real thing. Because Star Wars is known more for its...
Oh, yeah.
And
definitely.
The Mandalorian had spectacle even from the beginning.
I mean...
This show doesn't. This show isn't about spectacle. This show is about what do you do when fascism destroys everything.
But you get what I'm trying to get at.
I get what you're saying, but I have to...
Is something I did have to use my brain for. I did have to use my brain as like, oh, this is supposed to be an element of corporate towns like this and this and that and that and that, and like how their hierarchies are structured and how the society is structured and all of that. I will give you that point because like, yeah, I did kind of have to use my brain to understand what they were going with that.
Yeah,
like so I see what you're saying. I discuss media with a lot of normies. So that's where my brain is like, these people are not going to watch this show.
Yeah.
Like, they can't, like, appreciate the show this way.
Yeah. But at the same time, I'm kind of just like, fuck that. I'm just kind of like, no, fuck that. So what? Fuck you, normies, okay? Fuck you.
Don't ask this man his opinion on Eternals.
So, yeah, honestly, like, sometimes I'm just like, yeah, I understand the normie perspective, but sometimes I'm like, you know what? Fuck the normies. This is better than what you people actually fucking deserve. This show, in my opinion...
Oh, don't boo. I know what makes you clap.
Listen, some of you motherfuckers defend Thor Love and Thunder. I don't want to fucking hear it. Anyways, but I just, okay, because I've just been jerking the show off, I just want to say, I really like this. I've said before on the podcast that Star Wars is at its best when it's about fighting fascism, and I have been proven correct, because in my opinion, this has been the best show put out on Disney Plus for Star Wars.
I will say, just the only complaint I have, like I said before, it's just a weak episode 1, but it has an interesting hook if you view it from the first 3 episodes as a whole.
Yeah. Did Mon Mothma show up yet? For you?
No.
She hasn't shown up yet?
No.
Okay. Then there was an aspect that I wanted to talk about Luthen's character, but it's in a part that you haven't seen yet.
Yeah. But, so that's all I'll say on that, because that's the only thing that I could see people like detracting from this show. But let's actually get to episode 3, because
episode 3 is when we meet Luthen, who because I've watched further along and I know more about Luthen's character, there are things I want to say about him in retrospect, but I can't. So I like how when we first meet him, he seems to be this gritty, like, oh, I'm already part, like you would think based off of previous Star Wars knowledge, he's already part of the Rebel Alliance, like he's a recruiter.
But then he puts on the facade of like, he changes his hair entirely, he has a complete like regal costume and everything.
Did you notice who he looks like? He emulated the fashion of Palpatine, because
I kind of felt that
he emulates the fashion of Palpatine, because in fascism it's surrounded by your leader having its personality.
Oh, have you noticed like news personalities getting noticeably tanner? Like in real world.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, that's what I mean. That's what I mean. Luthen doing this is very much emblematic of how real world high up people will try to emulate the mannerisms and the appearances of fascist leaders that they either are acolytes are or pretending to be an acolyte of.
Like, haven't you noticed Carlson getting noticeably oranger?
Yes, I have. I have noticed that. We will talk about Tucker later. But Luthen, that whole thing of him changing in his ship to like changing into the Palpatine-esque garb, like, changing his mannerisms.
He even changes his posture.
Exactly.
Like the way he his hands are in like his natural position.
It's very, if you watch how he...
Oh, yeah.
Which I love. That is amazing. That is a level of detail and storytelling and world building that we seldom get.
I will say, the elements that you were talking about in the first arc, I will say episode 4 does that tremendously better, because I actually noticed it a lot, especially with Mon Mothma's like hesitant in front of like someone,
a new driver.
Like, yeah.
Like, it was so genius how they put a new driver there. And, like, you don't know. Is he a spy? Is he actually a spy trying to root out dissidents? Or is he a new driver? fascism does. It creates an environment of fear and distrust that even the most minute things become things that you constantly worry about. Is the person I'm with now a spy for the government? Or are they normal? Am I paranoid? Or are they paranoid?
I will say the other element, like besides her part in the rebellion, I will say her part in her political life, they actually handled that just as well.
Yeah, because you saw the discussion with her husband about the new foundation, right?
Yeah.
But I love...
Because I will break it down just a bit. Because what happens is that, all of a sudden her husband is setting a table for people in politics.
Sly Moore. Specifically, I want to say Sly Moore, because in the EU... No. Sly Moore in the EU was Palpatine's, like in his inner circle, and in the canon, Sly Moore is one of his...
But...
for lack of a better term, Sly Moore is...
Honestly, Episode 4 is my favorite.
Episode 4 was really good. Like, the other thing I really liked was how... So, one thing that I really like is that basically, Mon Mothma's relationship with her husband is dead. You can very clearly tell this is
there's no chemistry between them, but that's not at the fault of the writers. The writers wrote that intentionally. And you can tell. Because,
here's the thing. I really liked how this worked. So Mon Mothma starts a new foundation. And her husband's like, oh, you didn't tell me you started a new foundation. But I like it for two... It shows the lack of communication in this relationship. It's completely broken down. There's like no trust amongst them. But that's good because the foundation is a front. It is a front to funnel money to the rebellion. So of course she can't tell him that there's a foundation, because that would then mean that he would know about it beforehand, meaning its potential for it to be a front for the rebellion could be revealed before it's public.
Yeah.
Which I loved. I love the fact that they showed the double layer of it. The fact that, yes, the relationship breaks down and they don't communicate, but also she wouldn't have told him anyways because it's a fucking front.
I will say, the one thing that's super depressing is that when she goes shopping for him for art, it's not because she loves... Obvious that because of their lack of communication, lack of chemistry, there's not like that budding romance. It's just... It's something you do.
Yeah.
It's something you do because you're together, but not because you love them. It's just, you have to do.
I will say this. When you meet her daughter, the interactions between Mon Mothma, her daughter, and her husband, I like it. I really like it. It was that, yes, fighting the revolution, but that doesn't mean you are seen as a good person for it. Being a revolutionary is not this thing that you get to be, and it's all like, Viva la Revolution, and all that different shit. You're sacrificing everything. Mon Mothma sacrifices everything for the rebellion. I mean, we know she does. We know the movies. We know she inevitably becomes the first chief of state of the New Republic. But we are really seeing that. Before we first see her in... I think we first saw her in... what's it called? The Empire Strikes Back. Before we see her then as the triumphant leader of the rebellion, we see her basically throw her life away for the revolution. And even though her family will probably live better lives in a world free of the Empire, they will never appreciate her fighting the Empire. Because interpersonally, she prioritized the revolution.
I'm starting like, okay, this sounds really interesting.
Yes, like, this show is literally just about why you need to fight fascism, but fighting fascism isn't easy. It's not sweet. It's complicated, messy, it's emotional, it's honestly fighting in a revolution as on the ground agent is destructive to your personal life and your professional life. I love this. I love seeing all this because it really hammers home just how bad it is to live under the Empire and how desperate the rebellion is come the New Hope. Knowing that this is what leads up to that trench run, knowing the amount of lives destroyed, the amount of relationships completely torn apart for fighting this fight, to know that was what was on the line when Luke goes into that trench run, it elevates the story of fighting against the Empire to something more grounded. It elevates it. When you hear about real-world revolutionaries, they probably went through this too. Your Thomas Sankaras, your Che Guevaras, your, what's his name? Nelson Mandela. All of them. These revolutionary leaders, they lost a lot. I mean, hell, Thomas Sankara got assassinated. But this is what I really like. I really like that Star Wars is doing this.
Yeah.
And so I have to say, for the first 4 episodes, I don't even want to rank them individually. I'm just going to go 8 out of 10 for the series as a whole so far.
I will say, the only reason I'm going 7, so that's it. Because I'm going to be honest with you, like, episode 4 is an 8. Like, I would say episode 1, cool introduction, need a little bit more. Episode 1 gets a 6. The other 2, episode 7, dives more into the story as a whole and the character building, and actually pulls me in. Episode 8, it forced me to, or episode 4 gets an 8. Forces me to use my brain a bit more than I'm used to, so it gets points for that.
Yeah, like, I really like
I
this
can,
show.
mostly because, like, I'm just used to analyzing them episode by episode, and I'm still stuck in that.
Yeah, but honestly, like, there's so much more I could talk about this show. But this show has completely defied expectations. It is quite literally the most high-quality show that Star Wars has put out. And it is really, in my opinion, like, textbook, like, anti-fascist rhetoric put into media correctly.
Yeah, I will. For me, it does get better as episodes move on, because, like, it gets better.
Yeah.
I do have issues with the plot structure just a little tiny bit, just because I do feel like it does lean towards some of the more casual audiences not acknowledging it, especially because how good episode 4 is. But
yeah, but from the fact that I remember when we first heard about this show, we fucking laughed at it. We thought it was going to be so fucking bad.
What's next? DJ a story.
I'm pretty sure a little after Solo came out, right?
Yeah, it was like around 2018, 2019.
Yeah, and so like we were like, why the fuck would anyone want to watch a show about Cassian Andor? The nigga died at the end of fucking Rogue One. But no, I am so glad this exists, because it really shows this is what, in my opinion, what prequel stands unironically think the prequel politics were like.
Unironically, this show might end up being better than Obi-Wan. Because it already is.
I was about to say, what do you mean might? In my opinion,
like,
it is.
In
my opinion, it's not about will it be better than Obi-Wan, this is going to be better than The Mandalorian. If it keeps up this quality, I think I will rate it higher than The Mandalorian.
The Mandalorian has different strengths. I will say, as a whole, maybe I could see it. From season 1 alone, I'm detracting.
You have to put season 2. I'm putting season 2 in there.
That's why I'm like, no.
I'm putting season 2 in there just because season 2 was the weaker of the 2 seasons.
I mean, literally, season 2 does drag the show down by like 2%.
Unless you want to count season 2.5, aka the Book of Boba Fett.
I want to include that. The show, as it entirely, goes from an 8 to a 6.
How about this? We put Andor and Rogue One together, and we put The Mandalorian and Book of Boba Fett together.
You're being more fair there.
I still say, at the end of it all, Andor could still come out on top, because in my opinion, Rogue One was better than the Book of Boba Fett.
I disagree entirely.
You think Book of Boba Fett was better than Rogue One?
Do you want to sit through the first 45 minutes of that goddamn movie?
I would rather watch that than watch whatever the fuck the first 3 episodes of the Book of Boba Fett were.
Okay, to be fair, the first one was actually really good.
Okay, the first one with the Tusken Raider flashback was good. But once we got to present day Mos Pelgo, it went downhill.
Wait, what were we talking about again? I got super vitriolic.
Andor plus Rogue One could be better than The Mandalorian Season 1 and 2 plus Book of Boba Fett. The reason why I have to say that is because the Book of Boba Fett really is Mandalorian Season 2.5, considering how much Din and Grogu are in it. And how much their character arcs have developed, that you have to watch the Book of Boba Fett to understand Season 3.
I don't want to talk about Book of Boba Fett anymore. That show had so much promise, and then it botched it.
It really did, which is why I think Rogue One is better, because the ending of Rogue One is far more satisfying and climactic than the ending of Book of Boba Fett. Like, yeah, the Scorpionic droids were pretty cool, but Darth Vader on his way to the Tantive 4? Come on.
Rogue One would have been so much better if it was just a 10-minute short film. Ugh.
But see, the ending wouldn't have been as good if you didn't have the beginning.
I don't want to sit through the beginning.
Listen.
And also... Damn it, I was about to do the thing and then I forgot its name. Borgullet.
I would rather take Borgullet than the fucking than the fucking back to flashbacks. You're gonna tell me you would watch back to flashbacks over Borgullet?
I'm stuck on episode 1. Episode 1 was really good.
It was, but it's like WandaVision. WandaVision was good in the beginning, but then by the end you realize it just isn't that good. It's why we rank Loki above WandaVision. Loki obviously isn't as good as episodes 1 and 2 of WandaVision, but Loki as a whole is better than WandaVision because the ending of WandaVision isn't good.
Yeah, because Loki doesn't get bad at all.
See, Loki stays consistent. WandaVision, really high highs, in my opinion, the highest quality that was only matched by the first 2 episodes of Moon Knight, in my opinion.
See, I don't like comparing a movie that I think is a 4.
You think Rogue One's a 4?
I think Rogue One's a 4. That plot structure is messy, those characters are not interesting, and we only watch it because those last 20 minutes are hype as hell. Meanwhile, we have 3 very good episodes in Book of Boba Fett, and then 3 episodes that make you want to pull your guy out.
I would rather watch. Because the other thing I have also is that Rogue One had better actors.
Yes.
Rogue One had better actors, which makes it more palatable to me. Come on. The acting in Rogue One was just better. We had way better actors.
Oh, man. Yeah.
We had way better actors. And better set design.
I don't like...
Jeddah was better than any of the sets in Book of Boba Fett. Fight me.
I don't like comparing both of these shows that I think are failing grades. Can we move on?
I'm telling... Rogue One is better than the Boba Fett. The Book of Boba Fett...
No. As a whole, no. The heights of Rogue One are better than the heights of Book of Boba Fett. Yes.
But the lows are not as low because you cannot convince me that Episode 5 was a good episode of the Book of Boba Fett. It was a good episode of The Mandalorian, but it was not a good episode of the Book of Boba Fett. You cannot argue with that. How the fuck can you have a show called Book of Boba Fett and Boba Fett's not on the fucking show? Rogue One at least focuses on the main characters through and through. We don't have some meandering side plot about some random ass didn't need to be in the fucking movie.
I don't want to argue this.
Rogue One was better, and you know it. You know deep down Rogue One is better because it's more consistent.
It's staying bad all the way through. Is not good.
No, you can't say it stays bad because you admitted that the heights of Rogue One.
You were the one that said it was more consistent. Don't you dare turn this around.
No, but you can't say it's consistently bad.
This is your argument that
you're consistent because I think it's consistently good. You think it's not. You think it's consistently bad. But you also admitted that the heights of Rogue One, the ending was better than the height of Book of Boba Fett, the beginning. Thus, your argument is null. I debate broed you. You are wrong. Book of Boba Fett worse than Rogue One. Moving on.
Didn't I that I would rather watch the last 20 minutes as a separate short film? Didn't I literally say that I would take those two elements
but you
apart?
said consistently bad, and if it's consistently bad...
I'm debating your argument here. You're the one who said it was consistent in the first place.
Because I think it's consistently good. You said consistently bad.
As a retort to your bad argument...
But does that mean that you believe it's consistently bad? No, I think it's consistently good because I think it stayed consistent. The Book of Boba Fett started good, but then episode 5 happened. And you will not argue with me and say that episode 5 was a good episode of that show.
I'm losing track of the plot
You
here.
cannot argue with me on that
You're
one.
yelling too loud, and now I've lost track of the stream.
You cannot argue with me. Anyways, Andor, pretty good. Really good. Really like it. Can't wait to see it. And if this is the quality and they maintain it throughout the season, I am very happy they greenlit it for a season.
Yeah, definitely. I will say, oh man, this just makes me want to push other shows lower, because, like, take the amount of brain power that it took to consume episode 4. Did we do that at all for any of Obi-Wan? Maybe for like 5 minutes of the entirety of the show?
I would say when we were discussing the path.
Exactly. That's it.
I say when we discussed the path, it actually took a while because it was a really well done allegory. All things considered,
it was. I will say that, and that's all I've got. I'm sorry.
I would say episode 3 of Obi-Wan made us think the most because that's when we got introduced to Obi-Wan's real PTSD, the rematch with Vader. That's when we talked about the Brika episode.
That episode of 7, but like, is that even comparable to the amount of like?
I'm saying that's the most we thought.
But does it compare at all to what we've thought from Andor?
No, obviously not, but it's the closest.
The more that I consume more media, the more I want to push Obi-Wan lower.
I liked Obi-Wan. I thought it was fine, but seeing Andor makes me realize, wow, they really could have did better with this. I will say this though, area which was that it transitioned Obi-Wan properly from the end of Revenge of the Sith to the beginning of A New Hope.
Episode 6 is still an 8 for me, though.
Oh, obviously. Episode 6 was also really good. But I will commend Obi-Wan because it did allow us to see a proper transition from the Obi-Wan that we see at the end of Revenge of the Sith to the beginning of A New Hope. Which we did need.
Net 7.5. They handled the ending of Reva's character arc really badly.
Yeah. I will never get over how she got to Tatooine faster.
Yeah, anyway, we definitely need to get off of Star Wars because we are definitely way too vitriolic about the Star Wars.
See how much passion we have for Star Wars, and now we got to talk about Marvel, which we do like Marvel, but this is what I mean when I say that, like, Star Wars at its peak will be better than anything Marvel produces.
Yeah.
Because, like, while the next two that we're going to talk about, we have positives to say. Like, let's start with Werewolf by Night, obviously.
Because it's the most positive we have to say about anything of all of Marvel's output over the past year.
Hey, we liked Moon Knight. Yeah, we liked Miss Marvel. But then Doctor Strange and Thor happened, so obviously, yeah.
Yeah,
And then there was Morbius as well.
Yeah, Moon Knight was like a 7.5 for me. Miss Marvel was a 6.5. And then Thor Love and Thunder was a 4. Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness was a 5. Let's get into it.
So we have Werewolf by Night, which actually was pretty good.
Actually, like, unironically, they decided to be stylized for once.
I really liked it. First of all, I would also just like to reiterate the fact that I was a firm believer in its existence.
Why did this show have to be the one that was good? Why?
Because it was made with love and care.
Wait, what else did this director do in this franchise? Because this
He makes music. He makes all the music for Marvel since Doctor Strange.
That's what I'm thinking of.
Yeah,
okay,
he's a composer.
Because I know this wasn't like his first outing in the MCU, but
no,
this was his first directorial debut.
Mm-hmm. He mainly makes music, I will say he always made good music in Marvel.
It shows for sure.
Yeah. So, Werewolf by Night, I really liked it. I liked the black and white.
I will say the characters are a little weaker, but I have a feeling in the format of a short film that was like 45 minutes.
That's really... also a parody of 1930s horror.
Because they don't really need to be good.
Exactly.
To get the point across of the plot. Because the whole point is, we have a ritual, people are coming over, the bloodstones, and chaos ensues.
Yeah. I mean, there was a werewolf among them.
There was, in fact, a werewolf among them.
And no, he was not named Andrew Garfield.
Like, again, as you were saying to how they compare to, like, 1930s horror movies.
Pretty cool. The Man-Thing design, both in black and white and in color, really good.
And also, we figure out what happened to them after they were teased in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Season 1.
Yeah.
Did you remember that?
Yeah. Maria Hill did ask, what the hell is a Man-Thing? Which, I mean, realistically, yeah, Man-Thing should have been a thing back then, because that would probably be around the time he first did the accident, which in the comics, what it was they were creating a super soldier serum to replicate Captain America's, but then shenanigans happened, took serum, magic swamp, nexus of all realities, Man-Thing.
Yeah.
Like a fucking multiversal being. Multiversal in the sense that he's connected to the nexus of all realities.
No wonder they want to put him in now.
Yeah, like for a multiverse saga, it makes sense Man-Thing would be introduced because he's a multiverse character.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Just to let you know, Man-Thing is probably one of the most overpowered characters they've introduced so far.
Oh my god.
He like, low-key, none of them stood a chance. Low-key, I'm gonna be perfectly honest with you, if Elsa tried to fight Man-Thing, Man-Thing would fucking kill her. Hell, I would say if Jack tried to fight Man-Thing, Man-Thing would fucking kill him.
Thankfully, Man-Thing has the weakness of being a good boy.
Yeah, Man-Thing is, at the end of the day, a guy. In the comics, he was a professor. I'm going to assume that he was also a professor in the MCU. But he's just a guy. And, yeah, you can tell he's a guy.
Do we have any characters, like, similar to his, like, demeanor? Not, like, in concept, because, like, you can say, like, oh, he's similar to Swamp Thing because they're both from a swamp. But, like, is there any character that has, like, that kind of demeanor that we see from DC?
Swamp Thing.
Do they act the same?
No.
Yes. Because not when I say...
yes, like, and no. So, it's different because Alec Holland, who is Swamp Thing, is complicated. But, in a ways, yes, they are very similar. But I would say Swamp Thing is more akin to a deity than a guy, versus Man-Thing, which is more guy than deity.
Yeah,
it's very complicated.
Well, that's really the big difference between how DC and Marvel handles their characters anyway.
Yeah,
but I don't know. There's like a character besides Swamp Thing that is like, I feel like I've seen this archetype before and it's just not clicking in my head. Yeah,
I'm not clicking, but I really liked everything about this. The music obviously was really good. The black and white was really good,
and it wasn't even something that was added in. We can do this just to make it the Halloween special. It was actually written around it.
Yeah, which was really good because the Bloodstone the entire time was red.
Yeah, and then you see once they finally escape, oh, it's in color.
Yeah, and
this was intentional.
And Elsa was wearing was wearing red the entire time.
Yep.
But yeah, overall, I really like Jack. I really like the actor that played Jack. I can't wait to see him again. Most likely, the next time we're going to see Werewolf by Night has to be Moon Knight. Because Moon Knight first appeared in the Werewolf by Night comics.
I will say
it's actually kind of funny that Moon Knight is the spin-off character.
What was I going to say? I will say that this short film's best moment of subtlety that I've seen was the when it's discovered that he's a werewolf. He's like his arm movements and like the way that he breathes mimics that of a dog. Yeah. So it's like, oh, this is our guy. Yep. This is Werewolf.
Yeah. I really liked it. I know we're not going into too many specifics, but that's just because like it's
a simple thing.
It's simple, and it was just a good experience.
Complete opposite of Andor.
honestly. Like, but see, that's the thing. Like, you don't need to be complex to be good. You can be like Werewolf by Night, which is simple and direct,
And,
but good.
and unironically, this show is having like a really good response by audiences.
Werewolf by Night?
Oh yeah,
Yeah, of course.
Like, I'll say this because have you seen Cosmonaut's
No.
thumbnail? Okay, so it's literally like the title of the video is literally called Werewolf by Night or Werewolf by Night. The MCU tries to be creative again.
Yeah.
Literally, it's like night and day between like the MCU is getting boring. They don't know what they're doing. This is a drag to like, oh, this is actually really good.
Yeah, it was really good experiment. I will say, they did try to experiment with Doctor Strange.
That
You can't say they didn't try to experiment with that.
That
They didn't
film
succeed,
that
but they
film,
tried.
at the very least, has some of the best camera work in the MCU I've ever seen.
Yeah, I will say, Doctor Strange and Multiverse of Madness didn't work for me, but I will say they tried to experiment.
They tried, and it's still a 5 for me.
Yeah, but I will at least give them the idea that they try to be creative. But overall, I do want to talk about She-Hulk next, because I want to stay on the topic of creativity. But I will give this 7.5 out of 10.
7.5, yeah. I really like this. I
really liked it
It was
too.
really simple. It knew what it was, and
It didn't try to overstay its welcome either.
The fact that it wasn't just black and white, because like, ooh, black and white spooky, is like, oh no, they're actually pulling elements from Universal monster movies.
Yeah. Also, one thing I really liked was that this is a story that took place in the MCU, and that's it.
You couldn't even tell.
The only thing that really let you know was the MCU was the beginning when they showed the original 6. Then there was the Wrecking Crew episode.